Hey everyone, welcome into the ADN studio alongside Mike O'Donnell. I'm Haley Outen. I know we usually bring you Mondays with Mike, but due to some scheduling conflicts, we're here in the studio with you now. Better late than never. Mike, great to see you as always, and we have a whole lot to talk about today. But I have to ask you, once last week came to an end, what was your overall thought regarding this conference?
I think it was the best week in American basketball all year, and I think it was some of the best games in the country. You almost had the entire nation tuning into some of these games, and quite honestly, it speaks to the depth of this conference and the fact that you're almost guaranteed to have a minimum of 3 teams in the NCAA tournament.
Houston's one of those teams that has their sights set high on the NCAA tournament. A 2-0 week for the Cougars, first at home against number 5 Cincinnati, and then a dominant win on the road at Temple. What did last week do for the Cougars moving forward?
Well, I think it gave them a national perception that this team is for real. It's not just a Houston Cougars team that is still trying to prove themselves. I think with the week that they had, they solidified themselves as a legitimate at-large team. And they're ranked in the top 25 this week, the AP top 25, for the first time since the 1983-84 season. So congratulations to Houston, the fan base, the donors, the alumni. Such a cool moment for them. Houston basketball is back. And they had a monster week. Wins over Cincinnati and Temple. By the way, they were down by double digits in the first half to the Bearcats before digging their way back. And then they beat Temple by 21. 21 points at Temple. Even more impressive was that Rob Gray Jr. didn't play well. Houston's resume is really strong and solid. They have an RPI of 19. And in the KenPom, they're also inside of the top 20 as well. Their one weak side is their strength of schedule is only at 100, but they have 3 wins versus teams inside the top 25 RPI, Arkansas, Wichita State, and Cincinnati, to go along with wins over Providence and Temple, who they beat twice. Both those teams are in the top 40 RPI. So I think they have initially solidified themselves as a legitimate at-large seed. I think you might see them in that 8, 9, or 10 range come Selection Sunday.
Aside from losing to Houston, tough week for Cincinnati. Wichita State went on the road to Cincinnati to pick up a resume win, and they did just that. Mike, how do the Bearcats bounce back from an 0-2 week?
Well, certainly no reason to panic. You're still the 11th team in the country. You're still led by one of the best coaches in the country, Mick Cronin, and you have one of the best players in the American Conference in Gary Clark, and you're one of the best defensive field goal percentage teams in the country. Do not need to panic. However, there are some things that I think you'll see Mick Cronin look to adjust with his team. It's going to come down to really 3 main focal points for me. Really, you have to look at, they have to find a better way to guard the 3-point line better. They gave up 44% 3-point shooting in their loss to Wichita State and 40% 3-point shooting percentage to the Houston Cougars. That has to improve, especially from the perimeter defense. Now, also the second thing, who's number 3? Teams are crowding dynamic players Jacob Evans and Gary Clark Jr. Kane Broome showed flashes, but needs to be more consistent from a scoring standpoint. They need to find out who that third threat is going to be. They can't just be two-dimensional in the fact that they're only looking for points from Evans and Gary Clark Jr. They need Kane Broome to step up, and they need more bench points as well. The third topic that needs to be concerned is they have to do a better job of cleaning up the glass. Houston out-rebounded Cincinnati by 10. That almost never happens. And the Bearcats big man only had 1 offensive rebound. I think if you can fix those 3 things, which are very doable, by the way, it's certainly things you can work on in practice and build for this week, you'll see Cincinnati kind of regain some confidence. But it's not like they lost to or got blown out by 2 bad teams. They lost to a top 25 Wichita State team and a top 25 Houston team, all by single digits. So it's no time to panic, but there are certain things that they can do and adjust down the line leading into the conference tournament that will really help them out.
At this point, looks like Cincinnati, Houston, and Wichita State are headed to the NCAA tournament. Mike, could the American have a fourth?
It's certainly possible. We have still plenty more American Conference regular season games left, as well as the conference tournament. I mean, you have to think of it this way. In the tournament, you could potentially face 3 teams inside the top 25, and that's crazy, depending on how the seeding actually ends up. So plenty of opportunities to gain more quality wins on the road and at neutral sites. Now, the first team we have to talk about is the strangest team in college basketball, and that is the Temple Owls. They have some puzzling losses and some spectacular wins. Temple has an RPI of 40, and their strength of schedule is 6th in the country, and they're sitting at 15-12 as a record overall on the year. They're 3-6 versus RPI top 25 teams. They have wins over Auburn, who's 7th in the RPI, Clemson, who's 9th in the RPI, and Wichita State, who is 16th. Now, those bad losses, they are strange. They lost at LaSalle, who's 190 in the RPI, and they lost to George Washington at home, who has a 181 RPI. But they do have some important games coming up. Big game at home versus UCF. They're going to have to be ready for their offense because the Knights are so good defensively these last 4 or 5 games. And then they need to beat UConn and Tulsa on the road to finish out the year, so you have a lot more opportunities to gain some wins. The other team you need to look for, not many teams are talking about them, but they were almost in the same position last year. But this year they have so many injuries that a lot of people thought that they would be better and inching in on that top 25, kind of where Houston is, and that's the UCF Knights. This is a team that has been plagued by injuries. However, they have a very strong RPI and strength of schedule, and they have some great wins on their resume. UCF has an RPI of 63, and their strength of schedule is 66. Very, very good. Top wins over Alabama, who's 33rd in the RPI, Temple at 40, and Nebraska at 61. Nebraska may end up being an NCAA tournament team this year. That was a good win early in a November tournament. Now, the problem is they're 0-5 versus RPI top 25 teams, but they don't have any bad losses. They have to play at Temple coming up, which could be another RPI boosting win. And then they have Wichita State at home on March 1st, which could be a monster game for UCF to maybe move into their bubble. But they need to do a lot more to solidify their chances to be in the discussion as an at-large bid. And they're going to have to win some games, maybe even get to the championship game in the conference tournament to do that.
Looking ahead, a big week in conference play. It seems like there's a battle for 4th place right now in the conference standings. And for those of you who don't know, 4th place could be very important because that equals a first-round bye in the conference tournament. So, Mike, with that being said, what games do you have circled on your calendar for the week ahead?
Yeah, that bye in the conference tournament is so big. You know, you want that so you can have fresh legs to try and get to the semis with fresh legs in the championship games. You don't have to win 4 games in a row. Now, big games coming up you have to look forward to. Must watch for Tulsa. UCF at Tulsa on Wednesday. That is the fight for 4th place. Tulsa is 1 game ahead of UCF in 4th place, and the Knights just held SMU to 37 total points. 37! That is crazy. So that will be a tough, physical, aggressive, low-scoring matchup, but could be very important come seeding in the conference tournament. Then move over to Saturday. Wichita State plays at SMU. This is a rematch. Excuse me, I'm using the wrong word. A revenge game for the Shockers, who were almost ran out of town when they played SMU at home. Shake Milton went off and had one of the best games of the year. Now, we don't know if Shake Milton is going to be back. He still has a hand injury, but he could return on Saturday. And if he does, Wichita State needs to have a game plan to stop Shake Milton. And then Sunday, another massive game for Tulsa. They play at Cincinnati, an opportunity for them to get a road win, and Cincinnati needs to win those games at home. They cannot afford to drop any more home games, not to necessarily mess up their top 25 seeding, but you need confidence to win at home. You need to make sure and give the selection committee no reason to doubt that you can win consistent games at home, and they need to take care of business against Tulsa. But This is a dangerous Tulsa team. They're not currently fourth in the conference for no reason. They have Sterling Tapling, Junior Etu, and they are playing lights out basketball right now. That'll be a fun game to watch on Sunday.
All right, Mike. Well, thanks a lot. I'm glad we were able to have you here in the studio this week. Only one more episode left before we head to the conference tournament. So great to have you in here at such a pivotal point in the season.
Always appreciate it. Thank you, Haley.
All right. Thanks for tuning in with us here on the American Digital Network. We'll see you one last time next Monday.